is just a huge honor today to be podcast interviewing Bob Spiel, MBA, been consulting in dentistry for 10 years. I love to get the business on there. I know you guys like to learn lasers and gum disease and all that, but you got to get your house in order. For over 30 years, Bob Spiel's passion has been building high-performance teams with developing inspired leaders. His firm, Spiel Associates, transforms general and specialty dental practices by building leaders at all levels through a process of transformative coaching, acting as a catalyst for practice owners and their teams to discover, connect, and commit to new levels of personal and team performance. Throughout his career, Bob has been called Mr. Team, Mr. Turnaround. He had the opportunity to take on tough situations as a hospital CEO and surgical center CEO, transforming near bankrupt entities back to profitabilities. In his early career, he was an operations director for 2 Fortune 500 companies, which he led teams of up to 500 people while establishing world-class systems and cultures. Dentistry, finding Bob was like finding an old friend. He was consulting in medicine when a friend and a dental consultant invited him to go on an engagement, and within 2 days, Bob knew this was where he wanted to focus his energies for the rest of his career. That was almost 10 years ago, and since then he has seen over and over again that leadership can be taught and teams can be remade. What it takes is genuine desire, the willingness to be coached, and unwavering commitment to do so. He and his bride, Judine, have 6 children, 9 grandchildren, and live in Idaho near the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone National Park. Bob, thanks so much for coming by the house.
Very happy to be here
on a Saturday morning. Thank you to my son Zachary for working on a Saturday morning. You blow all the stereotypes for a lazy millennial. You're a hardworking man, Zach. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter if you're a dentist or a physician or a lawyer.
Correct.
You go to school for 7, 8, 9, 12 years, and you learn math, physics, and memorize the Krebs cycle, and then you get out, and the next thing you know, you're a business owner.
You've got a business, yeah.
And they have no business training. They can't even make payroll on Quicken.
Yeah.
2 weeks out of school. No one ever thought that maybe you'd have to learn payroll. And the problem is, so many of these kids that get out of school, especially the girls, I mean, they're 25. Most of them don't look like they're old enough to serve alcohol as a waitress. Mm-hmm. And they're leading teams where everyone's older than them.
Yep.
And then if I lined up 100 dentists on Dentaltown, I said, what's the toughest thing about being a dentist? Out of 100 dentists, about 114 would say staff.
Absolutely.
So what advice would you give them? And how can, and podcasters are young.
Yeah.
Old guys like us read books.
We read books. Yep.
These millennials, they're listening to you right now on an hour commute to work. How can she learn at 25 to lead women who are 45 and routinely remind little Miss Doctor that she's been working in this office before you were born?
Absolutely.
And you're 25, I'm 55, and I've been here 31 years. How do you approach all this?
Howard, let me give you an example. Perfect example. A client of mine who's a periodontist in Washington, D.C. purchased a practice. The existing practice owner had been in business for 27 years. A millennial, all right. Everybody was older than her. She inherited the staff and instantly knew that her vision for this practice was very different than what his vision had been. He had a very top-down leadership style, and she wanted to have what I call an upside-down leadership style. In other words, his staff performed at the level that he had commanded them to perform all along, which is very baby boomerish. And it's what we learned from our parents, right? That kind of military command and control structure. Her vision was very different. She wanted her team to become an extension of her so that she then could focus on the dentistry, but know that her team was taking care of all the other elements behind it. And let me just tell you today, she just had a baby 10 days ago. She's opening up a brand new office in 2 weeks. She's got one of the biggest months ever scheduled for the month of March, and her team has done it all of it. But what she did, Howard, was number one. She decided and committed that she was going to follow her own vision. And I know you're a big person on vision. I've read some of your things. And to have that mental picture and clarity in terms of where you want to go and what it's going to look like, okay? She hired a coach to help her achieve that. And I was really lucky to be the guy that she hired to do so. And there are plenty of coaches out there that can help a doctor do this. But along with her vision, along with hiring a coach, it was her commitment to learn to let go of the things that she could delegate and empower her team to do them effectively. And I call that a recipe of EPA, which stands for really clear expectations.
It's called CPA?
EPA. EPA. All right. A lot of practices that you find look like something.
Protection Agency?
Yep. Look like something the EPA should come clean up. All right. This is how you clean up your practice. Number one, clear expectations. And with those expectations, the magic of that, Howard, is that then accountability becomes easy. It was like I was talking to a client yesterday about something that I call setting roles, goals, and expectations and metrics. It's a method to try to make these expectations clear for everyone, and so that you can actually delegate at a very human level, but not delegate necessarily the methods, but the results. Okay, which is one thing Stephen Covey talked about a long time ago. If you want a bunch of quote-unquote gophers walking around your practice, then you delegate results. All right, do this, do this, do this, do this. They're all gophers. If you want a team of empowered individuals, you set expectations clearly and you begin to delegate what the outcomes need to be. All right, and there are obviously other components behind that with really good communication and an attitude of wanting to see that your team succeed.
And by the way, Stephen Covey lifted that from General Patton.
Oh, he did?
General Patton was the first guy in the military, and it was during World War II. He said, don't tell them how to do it. Tell them what needs to be done, and they're going to figure out the best ways to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just tell them the results you need, and then get out of their way. That was 4-star General Patton.
Yep, good for him. I wasn't aware of that, but I agree with that completely. In fact, my first mentor said, when you want to lead a team, create an environment of trust, number one.
This is back to the EPA. Well, the EPA, the E was for expectation.
Yeah.
But it would create an environment
of trust. Clarify the expectations was his number 2 point.
Environment of trust and
clarify the expectations. Then get the needed tools and get out of the way. That's point number 4. So anyway, circling back to this EPA model, Howard, and I'm sorry to be a little circular with you right now, but E stands for expectations. Clear, concise, delegated effectively with accountability underneath them. Then you create a culture of participation. That's what the P stands for. Where you when you don't have participation, you don't have buy-in, right? Especially, millennials understand that concept dramatically. They want buy-in into all sorts of things going on, but too often they haven't found the ability to participate. Well, that's how one of the ways you lead your team. Bring them in. Allow them to help problem solve with you. And then the A is kind of the cherry on top. You show appreciation. Appreciation is what fuels the human heart. Pay is a hygiene factor, but appreciation itself.
Pay is a what factor?
Pay is called a hygiene factor.
Pay is a hygiene factor.
What that means is that we can always spend more than we bring in. The goal is to make sure that it's fair. But pay itself is not a very good long-term motivator. The best motivator that you can employ as a leader is to learn how to say thank you. In fact, that's one of the most important things that I think somebody tomorrow can begin to work on. If they want to just practice one thing to help them learn to be a better leader,
I had a very
it's learn how to say thank you.
I had a very crude example that I said, do you think any woman wants to be married to a man who gives her $1 million cash and spending money, but then verbally abuses her all day?
No.
She'd rather live in a trailer.
Absolutely, with a man who treats her like a queen.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So money, and I cannot believe how many doctors, they're the last person to get to the office. The first thing they do is they walk up, they look at the schedule, and their first thing to say to staff is, why the hell do I have an opening from 2 to 3? Did you guys, and it's like, wow, 8 o'clock in the morning, and your first...
Yeah,
your best idea is to hurl an insult.
It is.
At the ladies who are going to be answering the phone all day to your customers.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the greatest things that I ever heard, Howard, was, again, you'll hear some Coveyisms from me because he's been really instrumental. And my first mentor was actually a graduate student for him. But your staff will treat your customers or your patients the way they are treated. It's a remarkable thought, but it's
And
very true.
He just died last year on a mountain biking
bike accident. He died in my hometown of Idaho Falls, Idaho. He was up.
Did he have a bike helmet on?
I don't know. It
was.
Nobody ever really said how
and
he
then
died.
somebody really famous. Yeah, well, they said he crashed his mountain bike.
Yeah.
And then someone else, one of the great athletes I just read on Facebook today, died being thrown from a horse.
Really?
It's like
Yeah.
And then everybody makes fun of me because I'm fat and I just work out at the IHOP every day. Sometimes the Waffle House, but usually the IHOP. No one
It's
ever
safer that
died
way.
eating a pancake.
No, and no bikes, no helmets needed.
You're giving away your age. You have to be over 50 when you say Stephen Covey. A lot of these millennials.
That is true.
So he wrote one of the most famous books of all time.
He did.
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective
People.
So now I'm going to quiz your early on stage
you bet.
dementia. Can you remember all 7?
Absolutely.
Really? Let's
in fact, I'll tell you, this doctor that I told you about that is having a baby right now, when I started working with her, and I tell this everybody on your podcast, if there's one thing that they can do to move their own personal leadership up, go buy that book.
What year was that book?
It was in 88.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how many of these people weren't even...
Or get the Audible download, all right? Get the Audible download, listen to it a couple of times, and get the book, and then go slow.
Which Amazon now is selling more audiobooks than
I'm sure they
books,
are. Yeah, absolutely.
So what are the 7 habits in 1988?
Okay, and they still work now. Number 1 is be proactive. And what that means is instead of, like the doctor, the example that you gave, well, what's wrong with my schedule? Why didn't you guys fill it up? Okay, that's accusing, blaming, and criticizing. All right, that's shirking the responsibility when actually that doctor sets the tone and the pace for that practice. Until they realize that, the schedule is going to continue to be in trouble. All right, but number 1 is be proactive. Number 2 is called begin with the end in mind. I'm actually teaching a course at Hinman this month about hiring, firing, and coaching with the end in mind. It's a fascinating concept, but number 2 is begin with the end in mind. Number 3 is called first things first. And the way that Covey put this together was, listen, look at yourself like a computer programmer. Number 1, believe that you are, which means be proactive. Number 2, then write the program. Then number 3, live it. That's what begin with the end in mind and first things first means. And then the 4th habit is called think win-win, which is this whole idea of abundance mentality, that 1 + 1 can equal 3 or more, that there's more. It's a giving economy. It's a growing economy. It's the idea that if you get, that doesn't mean that I've lost. It means we can grow something bigger together. With the hot idea of win-win, then probably the biggest tool to use in human relations is habit 5, which is seek first to understand and then be understood. That's the habit of active listening and being able to help people solve their own problems instead of just providing the solution instantly. Habit 6 is synergize. And habit 7 is sharpen the saw. How'd I do?
You're amazing. And I want to throw in just a little things there. When I read that book in 1988, so that would have been at the end of Ronald Reagan. So this
absolutely.
would have been
It was
George
a long
41,
time ago.
long time ago. But begin with the end in mind. I used to, after I read that book, this sounds kind of creepy and weird and bizarre, but it's true.
Sure.
I would lay down in bed, and some nights I'd sit there and say, okay, when you pull up this blanket, pretend they're closing the casket.
Yeah.
Because 100 billion humans have come and died before we were born, and there's only 7.5 billion of them alive today. So you know you're going to die.
Right.
And so I took the end and begin with the end in mind all the way to the casket, and man, is clarity. And I also thought that the greatest businesses in the world survived their founder. I mean, when Ray Kroc died, they didn't close down McDonald's. When Sam Walton died, they didn't close down Walmart.
Correct.
When George Washington died, America didn't go back to a monarchy.
No.
And that's why when people don't like religious terms like in God, they say, well, I don't believe in God. I'm an agnostic. It's like, no, believe in God means you believe there's something greater than yourself.
Right.
Even if it's just that the United States survived George Washington, or McDonald's subverts Ray Kroc. God is just means, are you all that, or is there anything in the universe that just might possibly be
bigger than you?
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is the fear and the think in abundance. That was the most profound impact on me, because I noticed my whole life that the dentists who view the dentists across the street or in the building as their competitors live in fear and scarcity and have miserable lives.
Yeah, yeah.
And when I open up my office, you leave all your dental school classmates that you've been, hanging out with for 4 years. You run across the street, and half the doors were slammed in my face. You shouldn't come here. We don't need another dentist. The other half are like, oh my God, come in, go to dinner. Let's come on.
There's enough.
And the guys who thought in fear and scarcity, they built $1 million practices, $2 million, $3 million for 30 years. And that guy who thought in fear and scarcity never even hit $1 million.
Absolutely.
And it's a lot more fun to have some of it's so fun because some of these patients that go around and they have all these complaints and they have no idea when they're telling you how evil this dentist is that you had dinner with him last night.
Yeah.
And you just want to, but anyways, and you see it in all kinds of dentistry. You see it, companies think that, it's our product and a scorched earth policy against all the other products, or institutions or consultants, or they some people feel like they have to burn down everyone else to build themselves up. And the bottom line is there's 2 million dentists. There's a $70 trillion global economy. And if you think there's not enough to grow the pie, and then the last comment I want to say that most people think that if you take half the pizza, I only have half.
Correct.
They don't realize that if you work together, the pizza might get 3 times bigger.
Absolutely.
And now your half is a pizza and a half.
Yeah.
Because you thought in abundance.
Right. Right.
So speaking of books, you have a hot book coming out.
I do.
You're about to publish your Flip Your Focus, Igniting People, Profits, and Performance Through Upside Down Leadership. This book dives into team building and leadership principles learned over the past 35 years of your career by amazing mentors and School of Hard Knocks. First of all, when is that book out?
That'll be out this spring. We're hoping this is March. We're hoping later on this month, if not next.
And will that be on your website, spielconsulting.com?
It'll be both on my website. It'll also be on its own website, which will be flipyourfocusbook.com.
Well, when it
and
comes
Amazon.
When it comes out, email it to me.
Okay, cool.
And I'll post it on Dentaltown, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn.
Great.
So a good way to remember his name is Spiel. Just think his Steven Spielberg. And your son is named Steve.
He is,
Steve or Steven?
Steven.
Steven.
Yes.
So your son is Steven Spielberg without the berg.
That's right.
So Spiel is German, or German? Which one is it?
All of the above.
So
Spiel, and I don't know what my ancestors did to deserve it.
But what I don't understand with the name Spiel is usually I before E, except after C, and in German names.
Correct.
Most German names, it's EI.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder why Spiel is IE.
All I know is that in Germany, whatever the second vowel is carries the long sound. So Spiel, you got the E there. I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
so tell us what this book
it's a tough name simply because I could never be a politician with the last name of Spiel. Right? All right. And,
so what
with the initials of BS, that would also kind of hang around my neck. But
you have 6 kids. I have 4 kids. I always thought that having a baby or writing a book is the same. It's a 9-month process.
Mine's been a 2-year, yes.
And you're pregnant every single day.
That is true, yes.
And the only secret to writing is rewriting. And it's so what motivated you to write this book, and what was the emotion behind?
Yeah, well, what a great question. I've been really fortunate throughout my career to have some very, very profound moments with some great mentors that taught me a different way of looking at business. I mean, like the millennials coming out today who want to have a different way of leading. They want to create a different type of culture inside their practice. And yet, once the first problem comes along, they start to grab the reins and they panic and they go into the fear mode and the scarcity mode. And that was my gut reaction as well. I learned that from my dad. He was an ex-Navy guy. But the first mentor was a dear friend, a guy named Jim Faber that I worked with in California. He was the guy who taught me this whole thing. Bob, create an environment of trust, clarify the expectations, get the needed tools, and then get out of the way. And then he added that, Howard, with a corollary of, and by the way, you know your job as a leader is to work yourself out of a job.
Right.
All right? And that was like, what? You're kidding me. My job is to work myself out of a job. Then what do I do? He said, Bob, you got to understand it's a bigger game. It's actually an unseen game. Just like those that get abundance suddenly see the world in an entirely different perspective than those that are just founded on scarcity. You suddenly see opportunities where the scarcity-minded are just seeing problems, right? Same thing here. When you view that your job is to work yourself out of a job, you suddenly realize it really means it's to create a team that's so effective. Again, like this doctor who just had a baby, client of mine, is so effective that they are operating without the doctor being in there. And what that allows you to do, finally, is practice the type of dentistry that you've always wanted to practice, but with a team that complements you instead of confuses you or even contends with you. You're all in alignment because of that. And it creates magic.
Okay, I don't know if this is a problem especially to dentistry, medicine, lawyers
it's
versus
not.
the general public, but it seems like dentists 9 times out of 10 can't delegate. They really believe if it's going to be done right,
It has to be done by me.
of
Correct.
course, because I am
Right.
all this,
Right, yeah.
and you're not a doctor. You might not even be the same species, Homo sapien. I mean, they
Correct.
just can't delegate.
That's
How-
right.
How would you tell someone who can't?
Great question. Let me give you an example of one thing that I did once. Because I had another client who worked with a couple of years. He just couldn't get this idea. Brilliant technician, had to do everything on his own. And finally, one day we were in a discussion, and I said, Mike, I want you to close your eyes and picture this with me. And suddenly, sometimes karma just does it, and ideas just start to come. And I said, okay, I want you to picture you're driving home from work, and all of a sudden a car pulls in front of you, T-bones you, and you've broken both of your arms. Wake up. You've got 1 hour to figure how you're going to save your business. And all of a sudden, Howard, all these ideas started coming out of him in terms of, well, this person has to do this, and they have to do this, and they have to do this. It changed his entire business. They grew 40% last year because he finally realized it can't all be about him. It's got to be about them. And once they become expert at what they do, oh my goodness, the guy that was working 16 hours a day now gets home at night. His wife is happier than she's ever been because they're making more money. He's home. His heart problems are gone.
Yeah, I don't know if that last part is always true because my good buddy who passed away last year, Bob Ibsen, I was a dentist. He started, remember Denmat?
Yes.
And then he started the Rembrandt's, the
Yes,
first high-end premium toothpaste. He sold that to Procter & Gamble in stock, and then like an hour later, they were swallowed up by Gillette for like 40%.
Sure,
Anyway, he had more money than any dentist I know of in cash. But his wife of 50 years, Marcy, said, Bob, you're not retiring. I mean, you're going to leave the house Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. End of story. She goes, that's my time.
That's my time.
And,
well,
and the lawyers told me he couldn't do dentistry because it'd be too much liability.
Sure.
$100 million.
Yeah.
So what he did is he opened up a cosmetic dental practice just for women from a shelter. They're always getting punched out.
Yeah.
So he did what he loved. He just rebuilt cosmetic beautiful smiles, and there was no money transaction. So if I don't give you $1, a lot of laws don't kick in. There was no trade if I just did something free to you. And there's good Samaritan laws.
Yeah.
So he had to go do charity dentistry just because Marcy didn't want him home.
But he was probably happier doing that than he'd ever been in his career, would be my bet.
Yeah.
He finally hit the pot of gold, and now he could actually do something that was changing people's lives every day. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, that is a really good charity because dentistry is most of the employees are women. What percent of the employees in dentistry would you say are women?
95%.
Yeah, 95%.
Yeah.
And it's weird. That's just culture because like miners are 99% men. Dentistry is 95% women.
Yeah.
But there's homeless shelters, and one place that we've worked with is called My Sister's Place, because they try to name things that if their controlling, abusive husband read the text, they wouldn't find it.
Oh, wow.
So if she says, I'm going to my sister's place, he might think it's her actual sister, but there's shelters. But you call those, because every time we've rebuilt a smile from a woman's battery, all those girls have so much more purpose and meaning. And,
yeah, absolutely.
it's a great
Oh my goodness, it changes lives. But you know, Howard, you asked the motivation to write the book. It's because I felt like these individuals that had touched my life, and that I've seen these principles work so well in dentistry, but also throughout other parts of business. I just had this book inside of me, and I had to get it out. And really hoping that it can begin to shift some paradigms, to use a Covey term, change some minds in what real leadership really means. It's not about the typical pyramid where everybody is there to see the person at the top succeeds. I learned you flip it. If you want a business, a practice that suddenly beats all expectations, you turn that model around, and the person at the top is there to see that his or her team succeed. And when you, that's why I call it flip your focus. When you flip that focus and suddenly realize that's my calling as a leader, it changes the entire dynamic of how you act as a manager and a leader.
To me, that is so obvious, because if you ask any dentist to draw an org chart, they put the dentist head in the top, and then they fill it in and be a pyramid.
Yep.
But when you look at the business and you flip it over, who does the patient first interact with?
The lowest paid person on the whole totem pole.
The lady answering
answering the phone.
And that lady, that first impression on the phone, when they come in, who's the first person they see?
That same person.
Lady.
Exactly.
And then when they leave, and can you just beat the crap out of her for an hour and a half in a root canal, and she leaves, who's the last person who says goodbye?
That same person.
And I believe the receptionist are 10 times more important than the dentist.
They are.
In a business. My God, you're right. I love that. I never thought of that, flip the pyramid, but I love that just because those ladies, and I don't like calling them front desk. I don't think your career should be named after a piece of furniture.
No, they're the business team. I call them concierge.
Yeah,
that's what they are. That their role is that important in terms of the impression that they create.
The problem with concierge is I'd never be able to spell it.
I know how to pronounce it.
I'm not even going to try to write down concierge, but you call them concierge.
I do. Yes. Yeah. That's what they are.
And, it's just Marriott, like the Marriott puts more training in their concierge deal than dentists take CE to get their license reinstated.
Correct.
The Marriott takes those people checking you in. They know that's the whole brand of Marriott.
Yeah, it is. Well, in fact, Marriott bought Ritz, but you know what the Ritz culture and philosophy is? Here you have the very wealthy being served by really the not so wealthy. But their whole mentality is this, Howard: we are ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. What do you think of that? I mean, it's profound because it elevates them and saying, listen, our role is critically important in this whole deal. And then they teach them how to anticipate needs. So not only ladies and gentlemen serving, but they're anticipating the need. They're trying to find that unspoken need and make it a blow-away experience so that person will never go anywhere besides the Ritz. Could you do that in the dental practice? You better believe you could. But, you know, the whole thing is, going back to this abundance or scarcity mentality thing, once you adopt this idea of abundance and you learn how to lead, you're suddenly playing the hidden game that the rest of the people don't even know exists. You know what I mean? And you're playing at a whole level that those folks that are thinking scarcity can't even see. And it makes work really, really fun. I had another client, an oral surgeon, who, you know, I was literally in a situation where 3/4 of his practice was ready to quit. Great guy, amazing surgeon, but he had this just 10 yards in a cloud of dust leadership mentality, and he'd never communicate back to his team. Taught him these concepts before I wrote the book, shared Covey's principles with him, and taught him about upside down leadership. And how the fascinating thing was, once he flipped his focus, I've heard him say a number of times, he's still a client, he said, you know, Bob, my real joy now is not doing that all on 4 case or coming in and doing an orthognathic case. It's seeing my team succeed. That gives me the greatest joy of all because it tells me that I'm succeeding.
But where do you draw the line between consultant, therapist, psychologist? I mean, we all know that, you know, I mean, like a dentist who throws an instrument. I mean, I know assistants
Sure.
who have been hit with an
Oh,
instrument
yeah,
for their own
yeah.
death. I mean, where does I'm not a very good leader end? And dude, when you throw an instrument at your assistant,
Yeah.
you're not right in the head. You need to go
Yeah.
talk to someone. Maybe you need medication if you're
Mm-hmm.
throwing. I mean, so I always thought to be a successful dental consultant, because I'm not familiar with any other
Sure.
industries.
Yeah.
That you kind of got to be an armchair psychologist, shrink therapist.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do, but
Do you ever in your coaching deals say, you know, you have some
yes,
other issue?
Yes, I have.
You need to go talk to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when they well, I'll put it this way. There are times that you can tell that it's impacting not the practice and the family, or there's chronic depression, or there's manic depression, all right, or just plain out fear, all right? And yes, I have said, this is how far I can take you, but you know what, here's some other resources I'd really consider you trying.
What was the third one? Flat out fear. You said depression, manic depression.
And just flat out fear.
What's flat out fear mean?
What I mean by that is that they're so fearful all the time.
Like anxiety?
Yeah, like anxiety.
Huh.
All right, everything they view is from
Then I want to
the
ask
negative
you
standpoint.
another question. I just had I filmed a podcast with back in St. Joe, Missouri, a few months ago, and I had some of my classmates on there: Stephanie Van Dyne, Lisa Gonzalez, and we were all talking because our 30-year anniversary is this May 11th.
Oh, cool!
30
Congratulations!
years.
Yeah.
I know, and I only look like I'm like 20, and I've been out 30 years. That's hard to believe.
Well, isn't it great that bald heads are now cool?
Well,
Because back 30 years ago, it was the black
I know,
guys
but what made-
that looked amazing with the shaved head.
And what made the bald cool? We're the same age.
I know we are. Yeah.
I mean, I lived through it. I mean, because maybe I was from Phoenix, but I swear to God, I've told this story so many
Yeah.
times. But every time, you know, I started losing my hair senior year of high school, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, it was like you had cancer, or prostate cancer."
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And everybody's reaction was, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" And you're just like, "Dude, it's my hair." You know?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the Phoenix Suns played the Chicago Bulls.
Yes.
With beautiful, gorgeous Michael Jordan and beautiful, gorgeous Charles Barkley.
Absolutely.
And the whole country was looking at these two beautiful,
Stunning.
gorgeous,
Stunning men.
Big smiles.
Oh, absolutely.
Handsome.
Yeah.
They could be GQ. The whole country watched these guys play 7 games, and the next day it was a fashion statement.
Yeah.
Charles
Well,
Barkley and Michael Jordan should be honored somehow.
Thank you.
Maybe the Dollar Shave Club for men should have it. But it is. I mean, I lived through it.
Yeah.
But Lisa was reminding me of, they were reminding me of a lot of sexist things that were said in 87. They were saying that the girls in our class said, oh, they were just going to get married.
Yeah.
They were probably going to work 7 years and quit. They'll have no impact on supply and demand. And 30 years later, you go through the girls in our class, and then you look at the boys in our class. The girls had bigger
outperformed.
practices, outperformed.
Yes, they did.
They were more likely to have a $1 million, $2 million practice. They're still crushing it. And so now I'm really skeptical about hearing about how the millennials are so different.
Right.
Because as you get older, you don't really understand right or wrong, but you see pattern recognition. You know, you use pattern recognition.
Yeah, success leaves clues.
Like in the stock market, 20% are always saying the sky is falling. When I go to mass with my mom, 20% of Catholics always think the end of the world is, going to be next Tuesday. And I've lived through the pattern that, these people are going to be. So my question to you succinctly is, are the millennials going to be all different? Because we're being told this. They're being told that they don't want to own their own office. They're freaking lazy. You know why they don't have any many kids? Because they're too lazy to have sex. I mean, they're just lazy. They're never going to own their own dental office. And do you think that's true or false?
No, I think it's false.
Do you think they want to be employees working for big corporate dentistry their whole life?
No,
Or do you think they
no,
want
not at all. Well, you can be an employee for corporate dentistry all your life and earn a living, but the only way you create a life is by owning your own business.
But you believe that?
I do. I believe that, and I believe that they are going to get that message. I understand the pressures that they have with debt and the opportunities that are presented to them by corporate dentistry. But I don't know what percentage, but I believe the lion's share eventually are going to begin to make that shift and realize this isn't everything that I wanted it to be. Remember this begin with the end in mind. Why did you get in dentistry to begin with? Right? It's a bigger game than simply showing up and dealing with 2 columns every day.
Yeah, and I think a better way to make predictions, everybody's always trying to predict, well, what's going to change? What's going to change? What's going to change? And I like to reframe it, well, what's not going to change?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's still
great
going to
question.
be it's still going to be a Homo sapien.
Mm-hmm.
All animals don't like to be under anybody's thumb.
Correct.
No animal wants to be in the cage.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to be in the zoo. They want to own the zoo.
Mm-hmm.
So this millennial is still a human being.
Yeah.
They still want to control their own destiny.
Yeah.
They still don't want to be told what. You know,
Well,
any
and
human that loves to be told what to do.
No, and here's
controlled.
And here's the paradox, Howard, is that the millennial generation is known as independent thinkers, right?
Yeah.
That is the classic definition of an entrepreneur. Independent thinkers, trying to carve out their own path, figure out their own way. I frankly think they're going to be the biggest group of entrepreneurs that we've ever experienced.
Yeah, and they have such an obvious mental error that just could be fixed like that. So since they graduate $350,000.
Yeah.
They think they have to get a job at corporate for 10 years to pay it down.
Correct.
Well,
when they don't realize that
$350,000, if you used other people's money to get $350,000 debt, you now have to go all the way and pick up another $750 to own your own practice, because you can pay that off in half the time. You can pay off $1 million of debt owning your own business all day long in 7 years.
Absolutely.
But $350,000 in corporate, you probably couldn't pay that down in 7 years.
Well,
and then you'd have to go buy a practice, and then you'd be in that debt.
Right. You're just rolling the debt instead of paying it off.
You can't walk 1/3 of the way to the store and stop. I mean, you were going to the store with other people's money, and the other people's money was good, because 2 MBAs aren't going to say, oh, we'll get a job at McDonald's and save up for dental school for 10 years so you can go to dental school in cash. We'd say, hell no. Use other people's money, student loans, so you can quit your $10 hour job at McDonald's, go become a dental student, and then pay that money back at $50 to $100 an hour. So using other people's money is good, but you can't use $350,000 of other people's money and then stop.
Right. Correct. You've got to go all the way, and when you do that, the wealth that you can create and your ability to pay it down multiplies. It's dramatic. I've seen it over and over again.
So if this is Dentistry Uncensored, so I'm going to ask some very brutal
go for it.
questions. Your website is Spiel Consulting. Just remember Steven Spielberg. Just remember Jaws. What's your favorite Spielberg movie?
Oh, man, that's a great question.
God, I loved, he did so many. SpielConsulting.com. If they go to SpielConsulting.com, what are they going to find? And crude rude, what exactly do you cost? And you're talking to lots of dentists. Who's your ideal client? Who's the best person to go to Spiel Consulting, and how much money would they have to give you, and what would you do for them?
My ideal client is somebody who's been out usually about 5 years. They have now reached the point where they realize there are things that they don't know. And they've okay, you get
They've
that
gone from know-it-all to
exactly.
Wow,
all of a sudden, maybe this isn't as easy as I thought, and I've got to go find a mentor.
It's the same with clinical dentistry. They think they're the best dentists in the world because it takes 5 years for all their shit to start failing, and they start wow.
Well, they're like Gordon Christensen. I heard him say that for the first 7 years he was dangerous, and I think in retrospect you realize that there is a learning curve, but around that 5-year mark, typically a doctor is either looking to jump out of corporate into buying their own practice, okay, or they've got their own, or they're working for somebody else who are ready to buy in or do something, but they've reached that wall, so to speak. And that's the perfect point, because you know what that wall creates is humility. And humility is a seedbed of growth. That's when you start to ask the right questions, because part of what we learn, I think, inaccurately in education is that we are taught to know answers when in reality, the game of life is to learn how to ask the questions. Because the questions are the answers. And the better your questions, the better your answers become. At that 5-year mark, you start asking. That's the perfect person for me. Somebody who also isn't, I'll put it this way, somebody who also views dentistry as a tool to give back. All right? I've run across potential clients, and it's all about the buck. And to me, all about the buck speaks to scarcity. I think dollars are great. It's an amazing tool. Money does great things. But if money is your primary motivator, it strips the heart out of your work. And suddenly, pardon the expression, you become a whore. All right? But if money is a tool to be able to create this enormous change in the lives of people and in the world, that's the sort of person that I love to be able to work with because they're fun. And they can learn and they can energize.
So
what do I charge?
Yeah.
Usually about $10,000 for initial consult, and typically the normal retainer fee is going to be between $1,700 and $2,500 a month. And that's
So it's 10,000 down.
correct.
10,000 down, and then how much?
17 to 25K, or $1,700 to $2,500 a month.
And then is that a contract for a
No,
length of time?
no,
No
it's
contract?
not. I don't do contracts.
And then in a $10,000 consultation, what does that mean? Is that a phone call? Or are you
No,
gonna meet
good
in
question.
The flesh,
Yeah,
or?
thank you. That's going to be a meet in the flesh. That's going to be on their practice, be with their team, be there for 3 days, as well as
So 10,000 is 3 days.
yeah,
in the
yeah,
office.
three days in the office, plus probably about 3 days outside of the office, with calling their patients. Actually, I do confidential calls with patients, new patients, existing patients, asking them a series of questions. It's amazing what you can learn from the person who actually, goes to the practice, how they view the practice, as well as look at their numbers, survey their team, etc. Every practice has certain things that they can do better. And especially that doctor at 5 years is thinking, how on earth do I make this what I was hoping it would become? And that's a great point, because you finally begin to realize, listen, can you begin to lead in a different way? Can you begin to communicate more effectively? Can you serve your patients in a different way? And it's awesome to see the growth begin.
So here's my biggest pet peeve in dentistry is
Yeah.
that the minute you said it was $10,000 for a consultation,
Mm-hmm.
100,000 dentists are like, $10,000. Oh my God. But then when it's a $75,000 laser, they don't blink. When it's a $150,000 CAD cam, they don't blink. When it's a $100,000 CBCT, they don't blink. And I look at, I've done this for 30 freaking years. I have an MBA from Arizona State University. And it's no doubt that the number one return on investment a dentist can spend is with the consultant.
Yeah.
But they're so, you said, I've always said, my whole team, there's, we all, when we're getting new team members, we're only looking for hungry and humble.
Mm-hmm.
If they're hungry,
I like
they're
that.
humble, my
Yeah.
God, they're always good.
Yeah.
But if they're arrogant, they know it all, and they're lazy,
Yep.
it's just recipe for disaster. But God dang doctors, they think, well, I have to buy a $100,000 CBCT because I can't make one. I have to buy a $100,000 CAD cam. I can't make one. But as far as consulting, I'm a doctor.
Exactly. I
Did
should
you
know
not
all
hear
the
I'm a
answers.
doctor?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a doctor of everything. And my dad told me when I got in dental school, he said to me at Kansas City, he said, just remember, H, he goes, you're a doctor of dentistry. You still don't know shit about anything else. And that was his way of saying, stay humble, my friend.
Yeah.
Stay humble. Don't be one of those arrogant know-it-all doctors. And if you're sitting next to an airplane, like you and I travel a lot, and you're sitting next to the next guy, one of my most opening questions is this guy say, give me 5 words to describe, like, say, a dentist or a physician. Do you think humble is ever mentioned?
With a physician, no. With a dentist, 1 out of 10.
It's almost always arrogant, conceited, know-it-all, obnoxious. It's like they never say empathy, sympathy, loving, caring, concern. And then when I go into the dental offices where those dentists have that, they have $1 million practice. But all the other dentists think, the only way to get $1 million practice is go to the Paint Institute, go to Coist, go to Spear, get CBCT.
And those are great tools. That's part of getting the right tools. But remember, the first two things that Jim Faber taught me, number one, create an environment of trust. Because he looked at me hard, he said, Bob, if you don't have trust, you're building on sand between people. Trust is that foundation. Number two, clarify the expectations. Those are human relation things, all right? Then you get the tools. But if you get the tools without those, you're still building on sand. And it's not going to succeed. You will end up never achieving your goals.
I was looking at this, let's see if I can pull this up. I saw this yesterday. This is one of the biggest brand consultants. Now, this is for a product, and I thought, how eerily similar is this to dentistry? When you're branding, 54%, the four things, trust was one of the four most important. The other was consistent, and I saw consistent as staff turnover.
Yeah.
Every time you eat a Snickers bar or a can of Coke, it's consistent.
Exactly. You
Every
know
time
you know
go
what to
the dental
expect.
office,
Yeah.
What happened to my hygienist? Oh, we fired her. We got a new one. One of those corporate dental office chains cannot keep their average dentist for 12 months.
Yeah.
So how are you going to brand a dental office? And you're talking about trust, consistent. Now, I wondered if there's any way. One was color.
Okay.
And the fourth one was values.
Okay, but let me add color and just say that, to me, that's feel. Feel, all right? It's the feeling that it creates inside of you when you look at that. I mean, you look at a brand, but brand is not something that's actually hitting the left side of your brain. It's hitting the right side of your brain. It's creating a connection. You're wondering the value, and is this something that I can first feel good about? If it is, I mean, let me give you an example, Howard. I'm a part of a group called the Academy of Dental Management Consultants. We had a gentleman come a few years ago and talk about websites and the whole thing about, you know, how do you create an attractive website? And he said it's a 333 rule. I'm going, what?
333.
333. And then he laid it out and said, you've got 3 seconds to make an impression, 30 seconds to confirm it, and then 3 minutes to sell it. Here's the example. When I look at my clients' websites, for instance, you have what's called a bounce rate. People that come in, people that come out. Your first question when you were surfing is, do I like how it feels? You don't know that, but that's your question. If you like how it feels, then you're going to ask, do I like them? Okay? Do you know 2/3 of the time when you look at search statistics on a site, a dental site, it's they come in and then they look at either the doctor or the team. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about what you do. They want to know if they're going to like you. Okay? Do I feel good about them? Am I going to like them? And then what can they do for me? Same thing here with color. It's all based upon perception. You know, that front desk gal we talked about earlier that gets paid $12 an hour, who you turn over every 2 months because nobody's picking up the phone. Guess what? That same person isn't doing a good job answering the phones.
And the dentist thinks what impresses them is all that alphabet soup shit after their name.
It's not.
They don't.
Or the technology.
Yeah.
Okay, that's down in the mouth of the funnel, but you've got to get them in first, and you got to get them to feel like I like these people, and I know they can do something for me.
I'll argue this one point until I'm blue in the face. If I had to list and write down the first 100 dentists that come to mind that have $1 million practice, they don't place implants, they don't do ortho, they don't do anything fancy.
Just regular
have 2
bread
or 3
and butter
dentists,
dentistry.
and they do fillings and crowns all day long. They collect $1 million and take home $350. They don't do any specialty dentistry. They don't do anything fancy. But when you walk in there, it's just smiles and how are you doing?
Absolutely.
And they just crush the feeling part of it.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to something I call it Dentistry Uncensored because again I don't want to talk about anything that everyone knows. I want to talk about everything that no one will talk about.
Okay.
So let's go straight to sexism. Women are making 95% of all the appointments. And I guarantee you, women don't trust men anywhere on earth. If mom goes in for a $19 oil change, and some man that looks like you and me walks in and says, "Well, you know, we did the $19 oil change, but you need to get your air filter and your brake fluid." She's sitting there. What percent of women are looking at you thinking, "Yeah, right. You just want more money." What percent of the women in America?
100%.
100. So then her air conditioner goes out. She's like, my grandpa used to have to give it a shot of Freon. And here comes the guy in the fancy truck and a uniform says, I can't give it a shot of Freon. It's 10 years old. You need a brand new air conditioner, full warranty, and it's $5,000. What percent of the women in America say, I don't even believe you?
Mm-hmm.
So now they come into a dental office and you say, you need an MO, a DO, and an MOD, and an RCT. And then the dentist leaves the room, and I turn on the recorder on my iPhone. I sit in there and I leave. She turns to the dental assistant or the hygienist, and the first 5 things out of her mouth are all about trust. Mm-hmm. And you just said, and this branding guy says trust is number one. How do you create trust? How does the dental office convey trust to mom? So some guy who's driving a Mercedes that lives in a $5,000 square foot says that it's $3,000 to replace one missing tooth with an implant and a crown. It's like $3,000. How do you sell trust to the patient?
Good question. You sell trust to the patient by having the patient be engaged in the diagnosis. In other words, I'm not pushing, I'm pulling as a provider. All right? You tee up the intraoral pictures. You show the radiographs. You ask questions that engage that patient in the discussion. You allow them to see what's taking place in their mouth. And you also ask some good questions, Howard, like, describe what the risk of this is. I'm not asking that of the patient, but here's my formula, okay? I call it triple W. Number 1, bring up the pictures. Show a contrast and ask a leading question of, I know you're not trained in reading these things, but could you just give me a moment and take a look at this, compare this to this? Tell me, what do you see? All right? Leading question, and he answers right. Don't ask him, what do you think it is? Don't make him feel stupid, but tell me, what do you see? And he answers right. Then the next W is, well, what this tells us is, okay, you're bringing her in, what this tells us, describe the diagnosis, and then say, and what we know from this is, and this is one thing that 95% of the providers don't do, they drive past the risk because they don't want to appear pushy and they don't know how to present it. What this tells us is, and for instance, if there's a cracked tooth or if they've got a cavity or whatever, what is the risk of doing nothing? Don't oversell it, don't undersell it, okay? And see if they lean in and say, what do we do? All right? Engage them, draw them, think of a funnel, all right? I'm not pushing it on them, I'm bringing them in, and that will create trust because participation creates ownership. With a patient, just like with a team.
Nice. I like all that.
Okay. And the last point is, you ask them, then you describe, the great news is, here's what we can do, okay? What questions do you have? And then how do you feel about moving forward? And that's a really key phrase. How do you feel about moving forward? Okay?
So you like to work with people who've been out of school 5 years. Would they still have a corporate dentistry job?
Could, or, well, if they're looking to jump, let me put it that way, all right? Mm-hmm. I mean, what can I do for them, Howard? Number 1, I love to help create high-performance teams, but I also love to help new doctors find that perfect opportunity.
So you like to help them find opportunity?
I do, absolutely. It's a blast.
And do you, a very common question they have is, should I do a de novo, find a space, build it out, create from scratch? Mm-hmm. Or do you like a merger and acquisition, buy out old man McGregor?
I think it depends on the person, but I've seen a lot of success with buying old man McGregor out, if there's a good fit, okay? And that's one thing that can go south real quickly, is that if the associate coming in doesn't really understand what's under the hood, all right? And that's where a lot of consultants can be extremely valuable, to help them actually see what they're not seeing.
I know, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
This post on your desk say, sold my practice, moved across the country, and now the dentist is some of the work I had done that had an open margin or break. Mm-hmm. He's redoing it and billing me. And he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, dude, that's all spelled out in your contract.
Absolutely.
Oh, we did it ourselves.
Yeah.
Really?
No.
Really,
do
dumbass.
do
You
not.
did it all by yourselves. You know, there's guys out there who have written that contract 100 times, but you're an arrogant
probably
doctor.
1,000 times.
1,000 times.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's the same dumbass who wouldn't buy a consultant. And here's the other weird thing I've noticed about consultants. This is the bizarre thing. You line up every consultant you know. And you say, well, how much does the average dental office collect? Oh, I'd say the average dental office in America, I don't know, 1.2, 1.3. No, it's actually $675. You're just in this warped world because the people who use consultants have these offices twice as big. And the consultants have to think in hope, growth, and abundance because all my friends have used every damn consultant they've ever met. I mean, and some of them have used 20 of them.
Yeah.
And they say they've never given a consultant $1 where they didn't get back that dollar in that year plus more.
Yeah.
And so the consultants, they should all be sharing their mailing list because a lot of dentists think if they did that guy, now they want to see what this guy does or this lady does.
Well, and they should, but I can shortchange that and tell them just go to admc.net. All right?
ADMC.net.
ADMC.net. That stands for the Academy of Dental Management Consultants. I'm a part of their board for the next couple of years. It's
Say it again.
ADMC.net. Incredible group of the top 125 to 150 dental consultants in America.
Well, tell them if any of them are in Phoenix to come by.
I will.
My house and
Yeah.
And I always tell them it's an Ahwatukee. It sounds fancy. It's actually part of Phoenix.
Yeah.
This is Phoenix, but everybody around here calls it Ahwatukee. In Phoenix, when you say Ritz, we actually think of a cracker. It's Scottsdale where they actually think of a resort. But here we're like, Ritz. Is that with cheddar cheese or that little spray foam?
Yeah.
So ADMC.net.
.net.
You're about ADMC. So is this something that consultants join?
Yeah,
Or is this something
it is.
that...
It is, yes.
But do general dentists join the ADMC?
No, you have to be a consultant to be a part of this.
Okay.
But you can find consultants in there. I mean, there's a whole host of consultants that are in there. And it's an incredible group of people. And talk about abundance. I mean, this is one of the most remarkable things, Howard, that I found is while you would think that we would view each other as competitors, we don't. We actually view each other as colleagues. And the amount of sharing and giving and just referring back and forth and things that take place with this group and another group called the Speaking Consulting Network that Linda Miles formed some 30 years ago is amazing.
She retired though, didn't she?
She did, yeah.
And did she sell that to...
Lois Banta.
Okay, she sold what to Lois Banta?
Speaking Consulting Network.
And
she sold to Lois Banta.
What did she sell to?
Rhonda Savage bought Miles and Associate.
Bought Miles and Associate.
So Linda's consulting firm got bought by Rhonda. But Lois bought the Speaking Consulting Network, which is a place, again, where dental consultants and speakers can go to learn their wares, share, find out things, and then go out and become better.
Nice.
Yeah. Both groups, incredible groups of people.
Yeah. And you got to think at Hope Growth Abundance. And Dentistry Uncensored. We talk about sexism. Mom makes all the appointments.
Yeah.
She doesn't trust any man. I think women dentists will have a much more competitive advantage because.
Well, why did you say that among your classmates? You observe that very thing. And it's because women come with that kind of natural, and I don't want to categorize, but at least from my experience, more natural empathy.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. That then creates that feeling that then brings people in and they trust.
In the animal kingdom, all male carnivores eat their young when hungry. Hyenas, lions, tigers, polar bears, and moms never do. It's hardwired that women won't eat their children.
Yeah.
But when we were little, all OBGYNs were men. Now they're all women. Pediatric dentistry, you almost never see a male graduate anymore. That profession's all gone to women. Even my male friends, including me, our family, our physician is a woman, just because it just seems more trusting. I think women
and they listen.
Yeah, I think women. I would actually feel if a man told me I needed a bypass, my first thought would be, "You want $100,000." That's what a coronary artery bypass cost is. It's $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
If a woman told me I needed it, I would believe
You'd
it
listen,
more.
yeah.
Because we have some big heart centers in America, and it's always all these men in ties and these fancy deals about come to the Heart Institute. And you're just thinking, is this like a bypass factory where you're trying to do like 100 units a month?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if I went to a woman, so I think women have a massively competitive advantage.
I think they've got a great edge, but that's not to say that men can't learn that.
Yeah.
They can,
Yeah.
all right? But it has to be very intentional on their part to
Yeah.
be able to acquire
And
those.
this is very sexist, racist, whatever, but I think the gay male dentists, they crush it at a whole new level. I mean, I think the women dentists have the best advantage. I'd next put male gay dentist. And I think your typical redneck rodeo cowboy from Texas, he needs to get humble quick.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs to get humble quick. But back to racism, humble and hungry. We just routinely see that the dental students who graduate who are born outside the United States, Asia, Africa, Latin America, they have twice the degree of hungriness, twice the degree of ambition. There's not a dental corporate chain in the world that won't tell you at dinner, off the record, oh my God, don't get a lazy ass American. At 5 o'clock, they're gone. He says you get, and hungry comes in two categories. It seems like the dentists from Asia, Africa, and Latin America, I mean, think of your drive and ambition
Sure, yeah.
to leave your country, your
Absolutely.
continent,
Yeah.
and come to the other side of the world where only 1 in 6 people live.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole new different. And the other one, and they say it all the time, Mormons. When you got a stay-home wife who's already had 2 kids in dental school, she's pregnant now, and you know she's going to have 6, those boys are focused. And then you get the single boy, born in America, and it's like 5 o'clock, and he's wanting to hit the bars
Yeah.
and see the ladies, and you say, "Oh, it's 4:45. I got a toothache online. Is there any? No, I can't stay." That Mormon boy will stay and do the root canal build-up and crown, and not go home till 7:30. So, what would you say? How can you make a non-Mormon, born in the United States, single male? How do you make that guy hungry? Is that just an overload question? I don't even want to touch that.
How do you make that boy hungry? Well,
The reason I'm saying is because a lot of you guys that are my age are looking for an associate.
Yeah.
Get the white male whose dad paid for dental school and has no obligations, and you might as well just it'd be easier just to buy a plant.
exactly. Yeah.
Get the little girl who moved here from India, Lebanon, Iraq, Iran. I mean, just get the hungry person who came from the other side of the world, and she will work you under the table.
Well, yeah, and they will. And I think the root of your question, Howard, is how do you go from being entitled to being empowered? All right? I just have to say that it's a personal choice. All right? The tough part is that there are those graduates that are coming out, just like the kid whose dad paid for dental school, who has a sense of the world owes me. All right? I think life eventually beats you up enough, okay, that you finally realize, wait, maybe there's a different rule here, that life doesn't owe me, but instead life is going to provide me what I put into it. All right? You know, one of my favorite phrases is that experience is what happens when you're hoping for something else. And experience is quite a teacher. I think that, going back to that 5-year mark, that doctor that's been out for a while that has a kind of attitude, well, you know, I'm just going to open a shingle and everybody's going to come to me and I'm going to be the greatest thing on earth. You reach a point where you can't pay your bills. Your wife is madder than blazes at you, all right? And that doctor that wants to go to the bar at 5 o'clock, he's not producing what he needs to anyway. And eventually, you start to reap what you've sowed. And you have to become real.
You know how many times at dinner I've heard this comment? Yeah, I had an associate, and he was okay. He was okay. And 3 years later, he got married and dropped a frog, and oh my God, he snapped into shit.
Yeah, because suddenly he had a reason for living. He had a reason to be responsible. Yeah.
So my dad used to always tell me in Kansas, an old saying was, if you see 5 hungry coyotes walking down a dirt road, something's going to die. And it's when you want to get an associate or whatever, it's I want to see hungry. I want to see moved from a different continent. I want to see at least has a mortgage on a home.
Yeah.
A wife and 2 kids or 3 kids.
Well, hungry and humility.
And
All right,
humility,
that's
yeah.
the other piece that I've seen is either it's going to
Okay,
set them
last
up for
question.
success or not.
I asked you for an hour of your time on a Saturday. We're at hour 5. Can I ask you one overtime question?
Of course.
There's a lot of fear and scarcity in the dental industry because they feel they're under siege from corporate dentistry. There's a lot of 60-year-old dentists who say, when I was little, all the pharmacists own their own practice. Now they're all employees at Walgreens and CVC. Are all the dentists someday going to work at Walgreens? Is corporate dentistry going to take over dentistry? What are your thoughts on that? You're an MBA.
Yeah, I am an MBA and I worked in medicine. And I've seen the takeover of an industry by corporates and in particular because of insurance. All right, insurance has basically gutted the heart out of medicine. My answer is, Howard, it's only going to happen if we let it happen. All right, there's a chance, there's a risk of it occurring if these listeners that you have that are so loyal to Dentaltown assume that, you know what, it's a given. All right. But my hope is that it's not going to happen because dentistry is a different sales model. It's a very different business model, and it's extremely intimate. It's personal.
It's all hands-on surgery.
It's all hands-on surgery. It's all, and
the
it's not.
pharmacist doesn't touch you.
No,
and
no.
80% of the doctors just listen and write.
Well,
dentistry, I'm doing surgery on your mouth.
That's
I'm
correct.
touching you.
And medicine is and pharmacy is a very linear model. It's volume, billing, and collections. And so corporate lends itself to that model. Dentistry is not just volume, billing, and collections. It's a relationship. It's trust. It's being able to get people to believe what you're telling them. It's having a team like that receptionist that is suddenly, on fire. All right? It's all those elements. And that's why I'm in dentistry, is because I actually consulted in medicine to begin with, and I was good at it, but it wasn't fulfilling. Dentistry has all the other elements of the perfect small business. Leadership, teamwork, communication, marketing, volume, billing, and collections, but it's all wrapped up into one. And if we can just move the needle with these new grads and let them understand, listen, your path to creating the life you want is not to work for somebody. It is to become self-employed. It's to have your own practices, to learn to take those risks, stare those risks in the eye, and realize, you know what? When it's too hard for the other guys, it's just right for me.
Yeah, well, my MBA analysis is on the same lines as yours in the fact that, 30 years ago, Orthodontic Centers of America was on the New York Stock Exchange, and it imploded. There was a dozen on NASDAQ. Yeah. And again, what's not going to change? I don't know any human on earth who wants to live under somebody's thumb, being controlled, being told what to do. A million years from now, Homo sapien isn't going to want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
That's why people are against the government. It has nothing to do with the government. It's sapien.
Yeah.
Stay out of my. Get out of my way.
Get out of my way.
Remember Ronald Reagan? When the government shows up and says, the government is the problem. They're not here to help you. They're the problem, and it's not the government, the Republican, Democrat. None of that. It's just sapien's a wild animal, and he doesn't want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And if these corporate chains, some of them can't keep their average doctor for a year, how are they going to build a model of trust? And the other thing I keep seeing is in Phoenix, Arizona, we get new patients from these corporate chains all the time.
Yeah.
And they say the same things. Every time I go in there, it's a different doctor. Yeah. They give me this $5,000 treatment plan. Do I need all that stuff? And it's like, and then I'll ask you one final question. By the time the average American dies, thinking with the end in mind, how many different, if they just born, raised, reared, and died in the same city in Idaho, how many different dentists do you think they go to in their lifetime?
Wow, that's a great question.
So none of them dentists could get it right. Oh, but Walgreens is.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It is not going to
happen.
happen.
And the other thing I'll throw on Walgreens in their bus is that the only reason there's pharmacists in America is jobs protection program. There's other countries where I've been to where the doctor loads your prescription on your insurance smart card, and you go to an ATM machine that's made in Scottsdale, Arizona, and a bottle comes down, throws a label, then these pills start coming out of a hopper, and you lift up and you take your prescription. So, again, that's the point. when you need 28 tabs of pen VK, you don't care if an ATM machine gives it to you. But when someone's going to lean you back and give you a shot and start working on your front tooth, you're incredibly particular of who's doing surgery on your front tooth.
Absolutely, because it is so emotion laden, all right, both physically and emotionally. And fear, it's ironic. Fear is one of our greatest enemies, but it's also one of our very greatest benefactors. Because you've got fearful patients, they come in, they don't trust, they're hesitant, all those different things, and they meet warmth, they meet care, they meet kindness, they meet empathy. That woman doctor that really connects well, the fear melts away, and guess what? They become loyal. All right? Corporate is not going to be able to pull that off.
And a lot of people ask me, they go, why don't you retire? Because I got a lot of people that have been with me for 30 years that when they say they have to see someone else in the office, they start whining, moaning, complaining.
Sure.
Because once they get that trust and loyalty,
they do, absolutely.
They want me, and we tell them, well, he's senile, he can't see,
he's opinionated.
Then one last pet peeve, one more overtime question.
I'm good.
One of my biggest pet peeves with millennials.
Yes.
Is they'll go to dental school in Kansas City. When they get out, they want to live right smack downtown in Kansas City. They come out of Arizona here. We got 2 dental schools, AT Still, Midwestern.
Yeah.
They want to want to see the Cardinals Stadium from their office. And then you get a one of my consultant friends told me that the best rule of thumb for success is to open up a dental office 2-hour drive from any airport that you can fly out of. By the time you get 2 hours away from a major airport, there's no
competition.
There's no competition. And the millennials just continue to stay. They graduate from dental school. They literally walk 2 blocks from school and open up by the plaza.
Right.
So my question succinctly is, do demographics matter?
They do. But I think what matters more is what you bring to the table. All right? We talked earlier about this dentist who views everybody as their competitor. All right? Howard, I think you and I both know that in reality we're competing against ourselves. That's really what the game is. We compete against ourselves every day. Yeah, I mean, could you open up in small town Nebraska with 2,000 people and succeed? Depends on your expectations and what you think success is, but I know doctors that do it all day long. I've got a client in Belfouche, South Dakota, right in the foothills, okay, of the Black Hills. They kill it. They crush it every day. I brought an associate into him a year ago. The guy was hungry and humble, all right? And he's doing amazing. In this practice, I couldn't get anybody to respond to the ads. When they are performing fee-for-service dentistry and doing double the numbers that you've quoted, of a good practice. If you play your game well, you can make it happen.
When I ever see a graduate go out, open up a dental office from scratch, year 1, collect $1 million and take home $350,000, which could have paid off their entire student loans. They're always the only dentist in a town of 2,000, 1850, the only person, and again, it's some city that you just fly over.
Yeah, correct.
And you'd have to drive 2 hours to get to the airport to board a plane to fly over that city. And then they'll work 4 10-hour days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then they can afford to get in their brand new Corvette or Porsche or whatever, and then drive into Kansas City and stay at the nicest, hotel in the plaza.
Yeah. And they're the hero of that town, too.
Yeah.
They are.
And then what's amazing in that town, some of these guys, like Iowa, they have a list of like 25 cities. And if you go there, the state of Iowa will give you $100,000.
Loan repayment.
Delta will give you $100,000. So you get $200,000. Most of these towns you go there, and the city council, the mayor will say, okay, well, here's 10 buildings that have been vacant for 10 years.
Right.
Pick one and it's yours. So now they got free land and building. And then in that town, a $10 an hour job is considered the bomb.
It's great. Well, it's better than Walmart.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hey, seriously, I called you. You didn't call me. I'm so glad that you're in town to stop by.
You. Yeah.
Remember, a consultant is a higher return on investment than learning how to place implants, learning how to do Invisalign, any machinery, any equipment. This is what I say. And some people misinterpret me. They say that I'm against CAD CAM. I own a CAD CAM. There's a against laser. I have every toy known to man. You know why? Because first you get poised for growth. You get your house in order. And the question to me is, when you say, well, should I learn how to place implants, or should I buy a CAD camera, should I buy a laser? This is what I say. If buying a laser, if you think that's the coolest damn thing in the world, and you'll run 20 red lights on the way to work, you can't afford not to get a laser. Get a laser because you're passionate and you think it's cool and you think it's fun. When I used to put my 4 boys in the sandbox and there were no toys out there, they'd leave. But if they had a bunch of Tonka trucks and all this crap, they'd stay out there all day long. If you think placing implants is cool, do it. If you think buying laser, CAD cam, all that, but it's not going to get your business in order. It's 2 separate things. Get your house in order, get profitable, get poised for growth, get the team, get the dream team, and then you'll make so much money you can fly all around the world learning all the crazy stuff. Because I get it. I'm still a dentist because I would rather pull 4 wisdom teeth today than golf at any stupid country club in America. I love dentistry, but I've never confused my love of pulling 4 wisdom teeth in under 5 minutes with business. I mean, I got a dental degree. I dig that, but we got MBAs. And last night, I swear to God, be last. What would you say to a dentist says, do you think I should go back soon and get my MBA?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
In a heartbeat. Yeah.
Oh, my God. That was the most fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, you learn the hidden game. All right?
I love that, the hidden game.
I look at it, Howard, like when you graduate from dental school, you graduate with half your brain undeveloped. But it's the half of your brain that's going to save you, make a career out of what you're doing, provide for your retirement, and make it a blast. If you just stick with the clinical side, you're going to be frustrated through the rest of your career.
So, Zach, what year were you born? 95? So I did it 98, 99 at Arizona State University. It's only a 10-minute drive from my house. It was Monday and Wednesday from 6 to 10 for 2 years. Those were my 2 favorite nights. You go there, and from 6 to 8 was one class. From 8 to 10 was another class. It was 3 trimesters a year, so you had 2 courses 3 times a year. 12, so 2, 4, 6, 12 courses with the same 200 people, where we're just discussing all this fun stuff. And when it was over, I was sad.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if they would have said, "Oh, we're going to have an MBA Part 2,"
you would do it.
I'd
sign up. I agree.
At the last class of MBA school, I'll never forget driving home. I had that white convertible. Remember that car? And I was driving home. I was like, sad, like, wow, that was so fun. Yeah. Whereas the end day of dental school,
it was like,
if I could have turned around and instructed a tornado to wipe out the school, I would have done it.
Well, it's because
2 totally different experiences.
Business school teaches you how to ask the questions and how to see it in a light where you can actually ask the right ones.
And
it's
what
awesome.
I did in MBA school, which I think is amazing, is I took notes. That was when I got a computer. I got a laptop. And I took notes for 2 years, and that's when I made the 30-day dental MBA. And it's free on iTunes, it's free on YouTube, it's free on Dentaltown. And what's amazing is I took those notes 98, 99, and now it's 2017, so that stuff's almost 20 years old. So you'd be thinking, well, that's all extinct.
It's not.
I mean, algebra is not going to be any different
Yep.
a million years ago.
Business
Algebra
is still business.
Is algebra, and what is so rewarding to me is at least every other day some kid will send me an email said, I just finished your 30-day MBA on YouTube or iTunes.
That's great.
And that was so amazing. And I used to reply back, dude, that was 20 years ago. Is it still relevant? And a lot of them say, I didn't even know it was 20 years ago.
Sure, yeah.
It was just awesome. It was on iTunes.
Yeah.
If they watch on YouTube, they say, God dang, you look like shit now. What happened over those last 20 years? But thanks again for coming over.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
And Zach, thanks so much for working on us Saturday.